Hop Nation podcast. This week I have guest Matt Webb from Mentor Group in the UK. Welcome, Matt. How are you doing today?
I'm always good. Yeah. How are you doing?
Doing good. Thank you for having the time. I know how busy things are for you right now, so we really appreciate it.
Yeah, hey, look, these things are really important, I think. And if you can't make time to have a chat with a colleague and a friend, then we're all in a pretty bad place, aren't we?
Yeah, it makes the current situation a little more difficult. So I really appreciate your time. Now, for the listeners, Matt, I just want to give a brief bio to everyone, and then we'll hear a little more from you. So Matt Webb's the Chief Operating Officer for Mentor Group. They have 200 consultants worldwide in 68 countries. Matt joined Mentor Group in 2007 following 13 successful years in the telecom industry and has over 20 years of experience in the sales environment. This experience has ensured that Matt has a comprehensive understanding of sales transformation and driving results for clients. Matt's responsible for Mentor's consultant resourcing, which includes consultant preparation and certification, quality control, and managing deployment of major projects. He supports the successful results for all Mentor clients globally. And Matt also hosts his own podcast called Chat with Matt. So welcome, Matt.
Yeah, even when you say the word chat with Matt, it still makes me feel uncomfortable. I never came up with that name. It just seems to flow. But it's quite nice actually being on the other side of the question thread for a change. So I appreciate you having me on today.
Well, we appreciate you being here. So give us a little more detail that the bio just can't in terms of founder's story. How did you get into sales and the telecom industry, and then you did a shift? Tell us a little more on your own personal journey and story.
Yeah, I mean, going way back, actually, I met my wife when I was working for a telecoms company that eventually got bought by Vodafone back in the late 90s. And I was working initially in a customer service role. And then someone came up to me one day and said, I think you might be pretty good in sales. I had no intention of ever going into sales. And actually, I think if you go into a classroom full of kids and say, how many of you want to be in sales? I'm not sure many hands would be going up. So I kind of fell into sales in that way, and I've been here ever since and stayed in Vodafone and worked through various roles and started to lead teams as well. And it was when I met Jim McManus back in my Vodafone days, actually. Jim was delivering a program called Jaws, just another way of selling. And I knew Jim for a good few years. And then one day I called Jim up and said, look, actually, I'm really interested in developing people. I think there comes a point, Corey, when you're a seller, that you realize you actually get more fulfillment and reward from helping others than you do from helping yourself and hitting your target. And then some people move into a management role and it works out. It worked out pretty well for me. But I called Jim one day because I got to a point in my corporate life where, the whole profiling piece and being seen to be doing this, that, and the other, it didn't really work out for me. It didn't fit into what I wanted to do in the grand scheme of things. So I called Jim and just said, look, if ever you've got an opportunity, let me know. And he said, well, let's talk. And you could say the rest is history. And I left Vodafone, which was a great company to work for, by the way. Had many good years there. And I've been in Mentor ever since 2007. So it's a long time now, isn't it? Nearly 14 years.
Wow, that's excellent. And, you moved into leadership roles, obviously, with Vodafone, but you, for all intents and purposes, are leading Mentor Group at this stage. And, I'm a recipient as a client and consultant with Mentor Group, and I've seen your sales expertise and experience, as well as your leadership, which is amazing, because in this current environment, I think leadership is getting exposed. And those that are great leaders are elevating their game and going to that next level. And those that somehow ended up in a leadership position by title, if they don't have the requisite skills and character, it's getting exposed. So,
it's a difficult thing, because I think sometimes as leaders, and by the way, I take that as a great compliment, because I'm not I'm not one to look out for that. I'm quite a modest person, and because it's never about me. In all the work that I do with the people like your good self in Mentor, the most important thing is that we work through you and for the client and deliver excellence. But I also think it's important as a leader that you show a level of vulnerability. And let's be clear, this year's been a difficult year. And as you can see in my home office here, being in these four walls for nearly 8 months consecutively now, I'm not used to that. I'm used to working from home, but I'm not used to being in the same place the whole time. And I think it's really important that leaders come across as authentic people that are not bulletproof, that have their own challenges, have their own feelings and thoughts. And if you try and hide them too much and you don't show that we are all in this together, we are all experiencing similar things. And most importantly, you are here as a leader to help your people and the people who work with you out. Then, yeah, I think you're missing a trick. But I think that I'm lucky, Corey, because I work with great people. I work with people who've got a positive attitude, who've got a can-do attitude, who drive for customer excellence. And by the way, that the support is always interdependent. So I count myself as being very lucky to be around those kind of people.
Yeah, well, and that's a great point. Like, our leadership's only as good as the team that, we lead. And, I certainly appreciate having great people around me because I know where my gaps and where I'm not good and where I may have strengths. And I think we need a good team around us because no leader has ever led any team anywhere without, a leader isn't a lone wolf. You can't be.
Know your limitations and don't be afraid to call them out. I work with a colleague of mine, Shirley, who you know very well.
Yes.
And we have these conversations all the time because Shirley's fantastic on detail. I'm not. And I'm very honest with that. I'm all right at the high level, but I'm not very good on detail. So we work together to achieve that. So yes, show where you've got capabilities that you can bring in, but don't try and be someone you're not, because you get exposed if you do that.
Absolutely. Now, because I know you and your personality a bit, how important is having fun at work and while working?
Well, you know that this year, I don't know about you, but my working day has kind of grown rather than shrunk.
Oh, absolutely.
Because, we're with you, and this is into our evening. You can see the light on in here. But the day starts earlier as well because we work with people east of the UK as well. Now, if you can't have a day where you have a little bit of fun, you have good banter with your colleagues, everything's too serious, it makes that day really, really long. So you've got to mix it up. And I'm not saying that there's absolutely a time and place where you can't do that, and you've got to be professional and you've got to come across in a certain way. But I don't think that's the majority of the time. I think that's the minority of the time. So be appropriate, but have a bit of fun with it. Why not? What's the worst that can happen?
Exactly. Well, it's easy to, especially if it's appropriate fun, you'll never get in trouble or piss anyone off because everyone loves humor. And fun. It's a universal value across cultures. So it's a winning formula. It has to be appropriate,
Corey. You're absolutely, it can't be, there is no place for anything that's offensive. Never. That's not funny. That's quite the opposite to funny. And of course, being British, we have a high degree of sarcasm. So from time to time,
you jest. Hey, I just did a UK thing.
You can't believe it, can you? I know it's a revelation for everybody on this who's watching this. We have a little bit of sarcasm in our culture, and but even with that, sometimes you've got to know when to and when not to do it. Right. But yeah, have fun. Go to work, enjoy what you do, have a bit of fun in an appropriate way. And you know what? The days just don't drag out if you do that. They're not as onerous. And actually right now, we were talking before this started as some of the key messages. I would say now even more so, we need to engage people. We need to have fun, check in on people, make sure they're okay, but have a laugh as well, because some difficult messages going on around the world at the moment. So if we can't do that, it just makes those things almost elevate to a position where we don't want them to.
Yeah, it
By the way,
doesn't
am I
necessarily
talking
make.
too much? Because don't forget, I'm used to being on the other side of the question. Am I talking too much? You can tell me to be quiet if I am.
I would, but you're good, man.
Okay.
So we've talked about the importance of focusing on people, and that's both internal with the people you're leading as well as externally to the clients you serve. Now, I know Mentor, the focus is people, process, and technology. Can you speak to what that actually means?
Yeah, I mean, if you add all those three together, what it's absolutely about is the customer outcomes. So, what is the change that we want to enable through what we do, focusing on the people and the capability of the people, making sure that we think about the technology. And a good example of that is if you're a salesperson and you're using Salesforce or Dynamics or whatever you're using, are you using it in a way that is additive to you? It helps you in your business rather than just becoming a reporting tool.
Right. Or a job requirement that's a pain in the ass, because most salespeople are relational. So the admin and the detail stuff, I think our own admission, that's not the fun part of what we do. Sometimes it's a necessary thing that has to be done, but how do you make it engaging and still motivating?
Spot on. And if you believe the saying that a sales professional will follow the path of least resistance, exhibit A, I know for sure I will, then unless it's additive to me, unless it's something which is useful for me, unless it's something which is going to help move the needle, I'll find ways not to do that. And I think that a lot of people are the same. So yes, improve people's capability to engage, their customers and their partners, but make sure that the systems that they're using help with that. And the processes that they're working within are customer friendly in a way that's going to help them succeed, because otherwise things get in the way. And there's nothing worse than if you've got things that are getting in the way, or technology that you're using which is preventing you speaking to or being in front of your customers as much as you want to be. So that's why we look at all three of those things, Corey, and most importantly, look at the outcomes that the customer's wanting to achieve. Lead and lag measures of success. So what do they need to do in the short term? And then what will that do to affect the change in the long term? And I think we've got to make sure we've got all those three covered.
You bet. And now you're dealing with a lot of the largest, most recognized companies and brands in the world right now. If we're doing broad strokes here, what are one or two, key issues or problems that they're expressing to you at this stage?
A hugely topical question, because actually with what's going on in the world this year, the way in which people are engaging their customers and the way that the customers are engaging their suppliers and vendors is very different. We've gone away, being face-to-face with people. We are more virtual than we've ever been, or more remote than we've ever been. Budgets are being squeezed because organizations are struggling. So what customers are buying has therefore the priority of those has changed significantly. So what we hear from our customers is we need to be far more customer centric. We need to be far more customer intimate. By that, I mean, we need to understand our customers better than we've ever done in the past, so that we can go in with an opinion on how we can help them. If we don't do that, then, what they buy from us becomes let's say a nice to have. And if it's a nice to have when budgets are cut, they don't do it. So it's a big shift in the way that the customer is buying, and therefore that perception of value from a customer's perspective has to be heightened, and the salesperson plays a big part in that. So what I think has happened, Corey, is this year in the pandemic, that shift in selling to be more outcome focused and more value led has accelerated. The need to use more digital and social tools in your sales engagement has accelerated even quicker. So I think that agility from a salesperson's perspective is more important than ever. And I've heard stories, by the way, where people who've been selling for as long as I have or you have, who are very fantastic sales professionals in the face-to-face selling environment, can hold a meeting, can adapt to different buyers. They're finding it really difficult because as we're staring into the the camera now, you do lose that element of body language and that fast rapport.
For sure.
Because you've got a two-dimensional image in front of you. So people have been really struggling. So that's been some of the key things that we've been working on with our clients. How do we continue to thrive, survive, if you will, in the current world that we're in, and rapidly adjust to a different way of working so that we can do fantastic things for our customers.
Absolutely. And we've all been forced to pivot our lives, and part of that's, our work environment.
Yeah.
But there's pivoting correctly. And I can see a divide within companies and individuals, and those that are doing it correctly and trying to be proactive and look longer term, because as much as this accelerated the change that likely needed to happen being in a pandemic, I think that there's going to be certain things we learn through the experience that will be enduring, and then other things, that will come back to a different normal. But there's a lot that's learned here. And, for those not to, take the step back, reassess and pivot correctly and be proactive and longer term and strategic versus reactive and just move into, a survival mentality, because we know there's certainly industries and organizations that are thriving and having their best year ever. Well, there's others that will not survive. We know that. And what are some of the things we're seeing out there that are creating opportunities where people are going in with the right mindset? Maybe you want to talk to mindset, and then what are the opportunities and how people are pivoting through this environment?
So let me just I passionately believe that the way we are viewed as an organization is going to be very much governed by the way that we react with our customers during this pandemic. Mm-hmm. And it will be remembered for probably years to come. So the authenticity that we need as an organization and an individual is really important. So not overtly going into a sales conversation with all of what you can sell. Mm-hmm. Going in with that customer mindset. You talked about mindset earlier, where your goal is to help them be successful. And from your own mindset perspective, believe that you've got something of value which can still positively impact our customers' businesses. I think that's really important, because I've definitely seen examples of where professional salespeople have retreated a little bit. They've looked at it and they've said, well, the environment is as such at the moment that it's going to be really difficult to achieve our number, to achieve our target. And of course, there's a big element of truth in that, depending upon which sector that you're in. We do know, though, that mindset will drive our behavior and it will drive our results. So in the face of that, what can we do differently as an individual that's going to help move me forward rather than keep me standing still?
Absolutely.
Yeah. So that it's a simple thing, Corey, but I wonder, how many people pick the phone up to some of their key contacts and for no other reason, they just say, how are you? Just wanted to check in with you. How's
I was going to make that point. Yeah. That's one of the things that, you're a master of, is that quick check-in, like not jumping right into business. In this environment, we have so many distractions, and we know that the whole mental health, mental fitness of people's being affected, because with any change, it affects us. But this is pretty massive changes. Yeah. I don't know anyone personally that hasn't been affected in some way. But this check-in you do, and just ask something simple, like, how are you doing?
It's so easy, Corey. It's so easy. And do it with a degree of, positive inquiry that you're genuinely interested. It doesn't take, hours to do, but you can make a big difference to someone's day if you say, well, how are you? And they say, yeah, I'm struggling a bit today. Tell me a little bit more about that. And maybe you can give them something, or just by talking it through, they automatically feel better. That doesn't take any drain of time on you. No, and quite the opposite. If you're motivated by helping others and helping people, guess what? then you can go away from that call with a feeling that you've made a difference to somebody else. It's a simple thing. And, it doesn't take a lot of effort to do it. So if we could all do that, if we could all take that away from this pandemic this year, that we check in with each other more often for no other reason than just, I want to know that you're okay.
You bet.
It's a really important thing.
And the relational piece, especially when almost every product or service out there can be turned into a commodity now. Like, it's going to come down to competing and sustaining and thriving, the value of relationships that we can build through what we do, whether it's product or service industry. It comes down to relationships. And at the end of life, when, if anyone's ever been in an ICU unit or, terminal care, the things that are most important on a deathbed are, do you have people around you? Were you loved, and did you have an impact? And just asking that simple question creates impact and is relational, and people know you care. And, it's a little nugget. I don't think it happens near enough. As simple, it's like the old common sense saying, common sense isn't so common. I think this is a good example, and it's something that we should all try, and I encourage everyone to do so.
We should just challenge people, in each of a given day. A colleague of mine told me this story that he did. He said he put 5 coins in a pocket, maybe it's his left pocket. And then through the course of the day, when he did a random act of kindness, he would move 1 coin to the other pocket. And his goal was simple: move all 5 coins from the left pocket to the right pocket before the day is out. So you've given 5 random acts of kindness. Now, you could argue they're not random acts of kindness because it's being driven by the 5 coins. Doesn't matter. If you help 5 people throughout the course of the day, and that's your signpost or your cue to do it, it doesn't matter. The point is, you do it. And the same can be said for, you come onto a call and you come onto whatever it may be at the beginning of it. How are you? Just make it automatic, but do it in a genuine way. Not, how are you? Oh, that's good. And off you go. There's no point doing that. Yeah. You got to be authentic with it.
Oh, that's excellent. So in terms of trends looking forward and where you mentor and the clients see, what are some trends and areas that you're looking to focus on moving forward to bring value and maybe differentiate in this? Because I know there's been significant moves that you and the company have made to really separate yourselves as a niche player in sales enablement.
Well, the way people are learning in the modern era is changing. So I remember my first day in Mentor back in 2007. I walked into a room which had a wooden table which was about a meter wide and about 4 meters long. And I promise you, Corey, I've never seen anything like it. It was about maybe 25 centimeters deep with workbooks across the whole of this bench, which is crazy when you think about it, literally 13 years later. But the way people learn, the way people consume information now is very different. I've got 3 sons, and when they were younger, we spent loads of money getting them to play guitar. Every week we went in, they paid whatever it was, £25, which is about $32. And they did their lesson, and then they went home, and guess what? They did nothing. And then they found YouTube, and they started learning off YouTube, and they became really very capable guitarists, because the way that they learn is bite-sized, it's in the moment, it's what they want to do when they want to do it. So the big change in the industry that I work in around sales transformation and development of people is that we've got to be far more flexible in the way that we take learning to people and the way people consume information. So technology is going to play a big part in that. AI, machine learning is going to play a huge part. No, we're not talking years out, we're talking 2021. It's going to be the big change, and it's going to be the thing that we really invest lots of time and effort in. So that's really important. And you know what, as we were talking about earlier, what the pandemic has done is it's accelerated that. Because you can't be face to face, so everything's gone virtual. People are going, oh, so you can learn virtually. Yeah, of course you can. So it's starting to change the attitudes and the minds of people. So if you can imagine You learn when you want to learn. You learn what you need to learn based on what all the information is sharing with you. You can measure the change because it's part of an AI, artificial intelligence process. And then it's agile enough that it says, right, actually, I can see you've improved there, but what's happened is it's exposed an area of development here. And it's all about the individual. It's in the moment and it's in line. So that's where everything is really accelerated, and it's really, really exciting. Really exciting, bringing technology to the forefront of what we do, helping people, helping organizations succeed, and embracing technology along the way.
Absolutely. And I think, the expression knowledge is power is a misnomer. Knowledge isn't power, it's potential power. What makes knowledge powerful is when you can transfer it into wisdom and practical application. So getting data and then insights that can inform both the client side as well as those serving the clients is going to be a tool that if you aren't doing it, you will be obsolete. And I would say within 3 years. If you aren't somehow tapping into that, I think you are at serious risk of being out of the game within 3 years, if not sooner.
Yeah, absolutely. So to do nothing now, you fall behind. So you need to do something from a personal development perspective just to stay in line with people. And then if you do a lot of your own personal development, whether that's reading, listening to audiobooks, watching your podcast, whatever it may be, you stay ahead. There's a great quote. So you'll know of Dr. Robert Cialdini, the guy who wrote the Influence book. And whenever I'm allowed to deliver, because Mentor don't let me do that very often anymore because I'm busy apparently doing other things. But when I do it, I always use this quote when I get towards the end of a session. And what he said was at the time, and I must have heard this a good 10 years ago, is a theorist is someone who assumes everything except responsibility. And I love that because actually we can all learn stuff. We can all read stuff. We can get this bank of knowledge. But if we do nothing with it, it's kind of a waste of time, isn't it?
Right.
So that's why with me, if you learn anything at all, or through Mentor or through you or whoever is in the privileged position of working with people, the real key is when those skills get put into practice. And it doesn't always work the first time. It takes time and practice and repetition. But when you start to see those changes by putting new knowledge, new skills, new mindsets into practice and seeing the difference it makes, that's all the reward that people in our line of business need.
Is gold.
Yeah.
That's the golden ticket, the Willy Wonka golden ticket.
It absolutely is, because then that even if by a point of 1%, something that we've been able to do is help somebody by the same margin, then you've done something worthwhile.
Absolutely. Now you talked about your sons with music and that. We can see in the background the Rocky. You got the quote from the Foo Fighters. What are some of the things you like to do for fun?
Yeah, so I'm a runner, although it might not look like it, but I'm an avid runner. I've done a few marathons over my time, not done one for a few years, so I'm planning to do one next year. Just because I think it would be a nice thing to do, to improve my fitness. So I love music. I love going to live concerts and events. Played loads of sports. We got an 8-month-old Hungarian Vizsla dog this year, so he needs a lot of walking. So actually a lot of my free time is gone, but for good reasons. And for me, Corey, it's all about my family. So I'm very fortunate to have 3 sons. I've been married 22 years. My happy place is being at home with the family. Yeah.
And I will add 22 years to the same woman, because I've had people say they've been married, 45 years to 4 beautiful wives. And you're like, that's not much of a brag.
I was going to say that's, good on perseverance, don't get me wrong, but in terms of stability, maybe not so much. So yes, Joe, been married to Joe for 22 years.
Awesome. Now tell me, to stay top of the game, you're getting people in high performance zones and to improve their own performance. what are some of your success habits to stay top of the game and that you would like to share with our listeners?
Yeah, so healthy body, healthy mind. I do believe in, although we've got a lot of time in front of Zoom at the moment and spend a lot of time in this office, I believe in going outside, walking, refreshing, and making sure that I'm not mentally fatigued. So having some mental downtime. I do a lot of reading. I listen to audiobooks more than I read because I spend time running or in the gym, and it's a perfect time to just listen to different perspectives. This is not a plug, by the way, but I do listen to podcasts all the time because, again, I'm fascinated with different people's viewpoints. It really changes and influences your own in some way, whether you agree with it or not.
Yeah.
It either strengthens your beliefs or gives you different perspectives to think about. So I do loads of that and read, white papers and so on. The biggest thing I do is the listening to audiobooks and podcasts whilst I'm exercising. So you could argue that you get a double benefit by doing that.
Absolutely. I love it. And as a guy who owned a publishing company, and seeing that shift, years ago coming, it's transformed the entire industry and makes it so accessible and affordable now, which I love.
Yeah, well, not only that, it also makes it consumable. So whether you were doing a commute before or whether you're out walking, and you can just, it's always fascinating listening to the people who have written a book, talk about it in their own words, because I don't think you can ever get that same level of passion if you're hearing somebody else read it. Don't get me wrong, people are really good at narrating. When you hear the person who writes it, you can almost hear some of the emphasis they put into certain skills, certain areas. It's really interesting. I like that.
And what have been maybe 2 or 3 of your most influential books or authors for you?
Well, I don't tend to, authors, non-fiction stuff, I think, or fiction stuff, they're just for reading and everything else. Right. I've read a few books in the last few years. Super Coach by Michael Neal was a great book. I'm a sales coach and as a number of my roles, I do a lot of sales coaching. Some great tips in there. One book that really resonated with me from an exercise perspective was called Can't Hurt Me. Have you heard that book?
Oh yes, Goggins.
Yeah, because it's got the guy's just got such a level of focus, which is fantastic. And I have to say, I've been on some runs someday where you get out the door and you think, I just don't want to run today. And you've got the choice. You can either go left to cut the run short, or you can go right. And that expression, can't hurt me, always sends me off to do the longer run, because the mind is such a powerful thing that it can control you sometimes. So I really like that. The other book, which I really love from a perseverance perspective, was Shoe Dog.
Oh, Phil Knight.
Great, because you read that book and you think, well, look at the success of Nike as an organization now, but it could not have been if certain things had, or certain individuals had not continued to believe in the dream. So I love things like that, where you can see the progression from humble beginnings to great levels of success, and the sort of tenacity through challenges along the way, which Can't Hurt Me's got, Shoe Dog's got. Great books. I definitely recommend you read those.
Absolutely. Now, I know you have an appointment to go to here. So last question for you is, imagine your 100th birthday celebration. Who do you want there, and what do you want them saying about you, Matt?
Well, it's a really good question. I'd love my kids still to be there. I'd love my wife to be there. She's a little bit older than me, only 2 or 3 years, but hopefully she'll be there. What would I want them to say about me? I don't know. In what we do, Corey, if we can make a positive difference to anybody's lives, is really important. But most of all, I'd like to be seen for being just a genuine individual who cares for people, who shows genuine empathy for people, who maybe someone that people wanted to be around. I'm not driven. I'm not bothered about being, hugely wealthy or this, that, or the other. I want to be seen as being just a good human being, and hopefully that comes across with you. If I can achieve that, then 100 years old, I'll be happy.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much, Matt, for your time today. your wisdom and insights. We will make sure we post a link to your podcast chat with Matt when we publish this. And thank you, Hop Nation, for listening this week, and look forward to seeing you next week.